Okay, folks, I think we're live here on the air. Want to give an update on the new election results that came in yesterday. Now the final ones didn't come in till quite late in the evening. The Division of Elections is doing them in kind of tranches by region. There's 5 regions throughout Alaska, so it's been a little, frankly, frustrating waiting for them to put the results in. They come in, they say we'll give more updates. It's hours later. And then we saw for the first time yesterday the results from region, I think it's 4, basically the rural region, where there's a very, very, very close race between Neil Foster and Tyler Ivanoff. Now, we'll go through all these results and we'll show some of the kind of big changes. That's one of the changes is now Neil Foster is up by about over 100 votes to Tyler Ivanoff. Before he was up by 10, then it was 5, then it was 3, and it was extremely close. But now that the absentees have been counted, Foster's up by over 100 votes. So I'm just going to check real quick here. I'm going to monitor the feed to make sure everything's going well. It appears it's working. So here we are. We're going to go through the results and talk about some of the big changes. One of the major changes is now Lisa Murkowski is leading Kelly Tshibaka, which was the first time we saw her in the lead the first time yesterday since the election with the update. So I'm just going to go through these for you guys, and we'll talk about them kind of as we go. As I said, the first one here is Kelly Tshibaka is now behind Lisa Murkowski by less than 1%, but still we're talking about over 1,000 votes. So again, Wednesday afternoon they're going to do the retabulation for all of these races where there isn't a clear winner with 50% plus 1. With this result, we'll talk about this down the list here, but Forrest Dunbar is now over that margin, the 50% plus 1. So there's been several changes, and we're just going to go through them here. So again, the one of the big ones here is Lisa Murkowski is now leading Kelly Tshibaka, and when these Buzz Kelly votes go off in the retabulation, that's not going to allow either one of them to go over the mark. And then the next one will be the Pat Chesbro votes, almost 27,000 votes, and those are mostly going to Lisa for sure. So Murkowski should easily win this one after the votes are recycled. Peltola went up a little bit as well. She's not quite over the 50% plus 1 threshold, but she's at 48.86, which is very close. So she'll probably get, I imagine, a few of these Chris Spy votes, but he's only got 1.7%. So he'll get recycled first, and then Nick Begich will go off, and just like we saw in August, that'll kick off Peltola to the over the top. Now this isn't the full. Let's go through here. It's 264,000. Votes. Now, the division has said there's more outstanding absentees coming in, and I guess, I don't know if they're going to retabulate or include those right before they do the retabulation. They said they aren't going to do another update till Wednesday, so I'm not sure if they're going to, include every single absentee vote they have that they haven't already put up and then do the retabulation, but there are still some votes outstanding. I don't know how many, probably not very many, but there are still some votes outstanding. So again, Peltola's in really good shape to win here once the Begich votes get recycled. The governor here fell a little bit, but check this out. He's still right above the 50% plus 1 threshold. I mean, not very much. I mean, we're talking about, do the math here. I mean, what's the math here? He would need the exact number for, what is this, 261,776 times 0.5. So 50% is 130,000. I mean, he's like barely above the 50% plus 1 threshold. Very, very close. I mean, less than 1,000 votes. So that changed a bit, but he's still right up there above the threshold, which means there won't be a ranked choice voting. If that holds, he'll just win outright. Bert Stedman didn't change much. He's well ahead. He had no chance of losing. Jesse Keel was unopposed. Gary Stevens he's always been well over half, so that's the same. No change there. Gary Stevens. This one, there was some votes that came in. Now, as I recall, I think Bjorkman was up by a few more, like maybe another person. I think Tuckerman Babcock may have caught up a little bit. I believe it was about 6. If I recall, it was like 6 or maybe even 7 points before these updates. So, I mean, now we're looking at about 4% difference, it's tightened up a bit. And then it's really going to be up to these Andy Cizik people here. How many of them bullet vote? He didn't raise much money. He didn't campaign. So this is more of, if you're voting for Andy Cizik, and we'll talk about these in the kind of Tom McKay race against Denny Wells and the Julie Colomb race against Walter Featherly. In both cases, those third candidates didn't raise much money, or hardly any money, didn't campaign. So, my contention is that people voting for like Andy Cizik in this case, or David Ibeck in the Tom McKay case, or Ross Beeling in the Julie Colomb race, is they aren't voting for them as much as they're voting against the other one. So I'm assuming a lot of Andy Cizik votes are going to be bullet votes, but some might not, and this race could get close. Bjorkman's in the driver's seat, but we have to see where these Andy Cizik votes go, and that's going to be on Wednesday. This one is tightened up a little bit more. I mean, this is honestly fast for ranked choice voting. This is a fascinating race. They all have a third. I mean, literally, they all have a third of the vote, with Giesel on top by. I mean, we're talking about less than 100 votes to Roger Holland. So she's still in first, and as long as she doesn't end up in third, and I think probably the bulk of the votes are counted here. Look at that, almost 17,000 votes. Now, some of these other races we'll talk about, but I mean, 13. I think some of the other like East Anchorage Senate races we're going to see are much smaller, numbers turnout wise. We're looking at 54% turnout here in this district. But as long as Giesel doesn't end up in third place, which it looks like she won't, these Democrat Rosalind Casey votes, who I've said before is a pure kind of toxic element to the political system, runs all the time, doesn't have money, doesn't really campaign, but puts her name out there, and happened to me 2 years ago in my race, but also in this race she's introduced this kind of very uncertain element to the race. Now, in this case, voters who are voting for her are Democratic voters, right? They're in the other cases where it's Tom McKay and David Ibeck, two Republicans, or Julie Colomb and Walter Featherly, two Republicans. In this case, one Democrat. So these are Democratic voters, and it just seems there's no way any of them are going to vote for Holland, or very, very few of them are going to vote for Holland. More are going to vote for Giesel because he beat her in the Republican primary 2 years ago. She's been campaigning as kind of this moderate voice, but I'm assuming a bunch of these are going to bullet vote too. So it's different in this case because the numbers are so close that if a few of them vote for Giesel and a few of them vote for Holland, but then most of them bullet vote, this race could end up being really close. But I think Giesel definitely here is in the driver's seat because it just doesn't seem at all logical that people who are voting for Democrat Rosalind Casey would then vote for Roger Holland, who's a very conservative voice in the Senate, beat Kathy Giesel 2 years ago. He's been aligned with kind of the Valley people, so I just don't see that happening. But again, as far as numbers go, this is fascinating. I mean, they literally all have a third of the vote, and the race was almost 17,000 votes. It's very interesting. That'll be on Wednesday. And by the way, if you're watching this now, Wednesday we're going to be I'm actually going to New Mexico to see my parents for Thanksgiving, but we're going to have Sharice Millet here in studio. I'm going to be on Zoom, and we're going to do a live show. We're going to talk about the races that are going to be doing ranked choice voting, and then we're going to actually have the live feed of the Division of Elections doing the ranked choice voting in our show. So that'll be on our Landmine Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Again, Sharice Millet will be live here in studio. I'll be in New Mexico. We'll be breaking down all the races that are going to use ranked choice voting, and then we're going to show the retabulation happening. So it's going to be on Wednesday afternoon, day before Thanksgiving. Here we got the Kaufman. He was always ahead, so this didn't change much. This is a Josh Revak seat that James Kaufman's taken over. Elvie Gray Jackson never was in any danger, so she's still ahead. Clayman, we talked about this before in the last update, but he's pulled well ahead of Mia Costello, so that's one of the Democratic pickups in the Senate. Lukey Tobin, this is the Tom Begich handpicked successor. She's was never in any danger, so she's going to win that seat. Now here's the other one. This is really interesting. Now the threshold to win outright is 50% plus one. Right now Dunbar is at 50%, literally plus one. If he had 4277, let's see the number here. So it's 8553 times 0.5. 50% is 4276. He's at 4278. So he's like literally right there at the 50% plus one threshold. So if this holds, he'll just win outright. This is the second Democratic pickup in the state Senate. We got the Bill Wielkowski. He was never in any trouble. He's going to win re-election easily. Merrick here, she's gone up a little bit. I mean, she just absolutely annihilated Ken McCarty. Maybe a good lesson if you're Ken McCarty, if you're following this race, don't compare Kelly Merrick to Ilhan Omar and AOC and have these really strange messages in your campaign that nobody really understands. Yeah, that's a big win for Kelly Merrick there. And then Shelley Hughes, these are kind of Vladimir Putin numbers right here. Look at that, 75%. She was never in any danger. Another race that's going to, use the ranked choice voting is this Wasilla Senate seat. David Wilson is in, commanding lead. But the other two, Stephen Wright and Scott Clayton. And interestingly, Stephen Wright ran against Wilson 2 years ago in like a 6-way Republican primary, and he got second place. He was I think 25 or 26%. Wilson only got 34 or 35% because it was a plurality vote in the primary 2 years ago. But anyways, these Scott Clayton votes, and again, this guy didn't really campaign much. I think he did raise some money, but not a great deal of money. His votes are going to decide this race, and I don't know. I would say based on the numbers here, Wilson's in really good shape, but I just wonder if people who are voting for Scott Clayton were voting, if they were voting against David Wilson, because he's the incumbent, they're all Republicans. If you're a Scott Clayton voter and you're voting against David Wilson, if you do mark a second choice, you're probably going to mark Stephen Wright. Because if you were going to vote for David Wilson, the incumbent, you would have. Now, I think like many races, we're talking about other legislative races, I think there's going to be a lot of bullet votes here. So, the more bullet votes there are, that changes the denominator of votes needed to win. So it makes it smaller. So you can win with basically less than 50% plus one of this number. So this is one I want to kind of see how it goes when they do the retabulation. Shower's still well ahead of Doug Massey. This is one of the ones I called wrong. We thought, based on the primary results, Massey was going to win. He did win in the primary, but Shower kind of kicked it into gear. He got really nervous that he was losing, and he ran pretty hard. So Shower is going to win that one. Kawasaki, we already reported this when the last batch came up. He's over the threshold to win outright. So Scott Kawasaki, and this district got a little more conservative with it added a North Pole precinct. So redistricting made it a little more conservative, and this really just goes to show how much of a good how good of a campaigner Kawasaki is, because Matherly here was former mayor, two-term mayor. He was on the city council. He was well known in Fairbanks. Didn't really campaign that hard in the summer. I think he got a little more into campaign mode after the primary, but this is a real testament to kind of Kawasaki in a more conservative district. He beat Pete Kelly in 2018, the Senate president, and now he's won this race outright against a very well-known Republican, conservative, the former mayor of Fairbanks. Rob Myers, he's way up there, never had any problems, North Pole senator. Same with Click Bishop. He was always above that threshold, so remains in good shape. Look at that, 48 precincts. A lot of these races or districts have like 8, 10, 12 precincts. These more rural districts have a lot more precincts. 48, look at that. And then Lyman Hoffman, of course, he's been there since the 80s. He's in good shape. Now we're going to get in the House. So again, the Senate, the surprise, the big change in the Senate was Dunbar right now is above the 50% plus one. So we're gonna need to wait on the ranked choice voting for the Giesel race, where they all have about a third. The Wilson race, where he's got 45%, but the other guys have the rest. And then the Babcock-Bjorkman race, where that Andy Cizik guy has 11% of the vote. So there's going to be three key races, three Senate races, where it's going to go to ranked choice voting. The other ones are decided. So now we're going to go to the House. Ortiz, he's in good shape here. He's incumbent, win re-election here in Ketchikan. How many precincts? Just 10, see? These are House districts, so they're smaller. Himshoot always was in good shape to take over the Jonathan Christ Tompkins seat. Andy Story was unopposed. Sarah Hannon, we're up here with Kim Jong-un numbers here, almost 80% of the vote. Juneau, Democrat, never had a problem. Louise Stutz, 60% here, the speaker. She always in good shape, no change there. Sarah Vance, Homer, she's always been over half, so she's in good. And Louis Flora raised money, ran a good campaign, but this is just a conservative district, and Vance also had money in campaign, so no change there. This one, same thing. Ruffridge has always been ahead. He's going to oust the incumbent, Ron Gillum. They're both Republicans, but Ruffridge much younger, and I don't know him, but I've talked to people that know him, and he seems pretty reasonable. And with the House right now being so close, and some of these races up in the air with ranked choice voting, I think he's one to watch to see what he does if there's a 2020 kind of lock again. See where he ends up. Ben Carpenter unopposed. Laddie Shaw was always well ahead of David Schaff there in that South Anchorage district, so no change. Craig Johnson, he was always well ahead of Carolyn Storm here, the Democrat, so he's over that threshold, 50% plus one. No change. Now here's one of the interesting ones. This is Featherly's continued to gain percentage. He's continued to gain votes as the absentees and early votes have come in. So he's at 45.45%, 3461, right? Colomb here, the Republican, is at 38.67%. So this is almost 7%. Featherly's ahead. Now, Ross Beeling, here's the decider, 1,170 votes. You know, his votes, the ones who do vote for a second choice, I'm sure most of them are going to go to Julie Colomb because she's a Republican. But the question here is how many people who voted for, just like we talked about with some of these other races, how many, the Tuckerman Babcock race, for example, and Jesse Bjorkman, that guy Cizik didn't have any money, didn't campaign. How many Ross Beeling voters weren't voting for Ross Beeling, but rather against Julie Colomb and Walter Featherly? I think probably a lot. The bullet vote, which means they just vote for one. So let's say if half of these people voted for bullet voted, which it's a high number, that might be less, but if half of them bullet voted, Featherly's going to win. Now, if a third bullet voted and then the rest of them voted for Colomb, I think the math will show that she'll end up winning, but it's just going to be really, really close. I mean, she's going to need like 80% of his votes, almost 80% of his second votes if a third of them bullet vote. So this is one of the ones we're going to see on Wednesday with the ranked choice voting. Calvin Troggy was always ahead of Jay McDonald over there, so no change. Kathy Hensley. Andy Josephson was barely ahead on election night as the absentees and early votes have come in. He's gone. My chair's kind of falling here. As the absentee and early votes have come in, he's gone well further ahead. So Andy, he's going to maintain his seat over there. It's my district. It was a pretty competitive race. A lot of money was spent there. Elise Galvin, she's finally, third time's a charm there for Elise. She ran twice against Don Young, and now she's open seat. And this Nick Danger guy, he's run for mayor. I don't even know who he is. He didn't raise any money, so Elise Galvin's going to be in there. Here's the other race, the other kind of race in Anchorage. It's going to come down to ranked choice voting. Now Denny Wells he's in a little bit better shape than Walter Featherly. Featherly's at 45. What is he? 45.45, right? There's Featherly, 45.45. Now, Denny Wells is at 46.6, almost 47%, with Tom McKay, the incumbent, down here at 38%. This is an 8-point, gap. David Ibeck, again, just like Ross Beeling, I think he raised $350 total. He reported raising $350 total hold on one second, somebody's getting a text here. For my business partner, Scott Jensen. Scott, if you're watching, I'm upstairs. I'm doing a live stream, so if you're here, come on in. But this is just like the other race where this guy Ibeck he raised no money, hardly $300, didn't campaign. So just like Ross Beeling, if you're voting for David Ibeck, I think you're voting against Tom McKay and against Denny Wells. So the question is, now McKay's in worse shape than Colomb because Denny Wells over here has a higher percentage. He has about a percent higher than Denny Wells does against than Julie Colomb has against Walter Featherly. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. So, this is he needs even more percentage of votes based on if there's drop off for bullet voting. McKay needs even a higher percentage than Julie would to win. So this is really 1,000 people voted for this guy. So this is one of the ones to watch here. I think McKay and Julie are going to have a real hard time winning these races, which would be two pickups for the Democrats or Featherly's independent, but two pickups for the kind of people that would be aligned with the coalition. This is no change here. Jenny Armstrong over Liz Vasquez. Hi, Scott. I'm live. Folks, while you're here, Scott Jensen, he's been doing great work getting me set up here with my whole system, my whole kind of live stream. Hi, Scott. Say hi, Scott.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, buddy. So Scott's been great at getting me set up here with all this stuff and the live stream. And
Jeff, you forgot to turn your light on.
Oh, dang. You're right. Folks, how much better does that look? I can't believe I forgot that. I didn't even think I was so in a hurry over here. Wow, look at that. It does look a lot better with. Now I do have this thing above me which cuts out the glare on my head, which I moved it a little bit. And that's good. Oh. See there's guys. There's the glare in my head. There's the no glare in my head. What do you guys think about that and the light? Now the light's on. Thanks, Scott. Scott's been great, guys. He got me all set up with this new system we have here for the live streaming, and it's just been really, really nice having having Scott Jensen. Look, I look so much better with the light. Thank you, Scott Jensen. Have a good stream. Yeah, we'll do, buddy. Thanks. That's Scott over there. Good on him. Zach Fields here was always ahead of Harriet Drummond. Never had a problem, so that stayed the same. This is another one where, in this case, it's two Democrats and a Republican. Now David Nelson's the incumbent. Cliff Groh raised a lot of money, like $200,000. Lynn Franks also raised money in campaign. The reason look at the turnout here, 2,000 votes. 18. This is the base, so super low turnout compared to like 5,400 votes, 7,600 votes for this race over here, 7,200 votes. We're talking about a few thousand votes total for this seat. Now I think more Democrats are likely to rank here because Groh was talking about this. He had raised a lot of money. Lynn Franks has run before. She's kind of known. She had some money. So I think this is a race where the Lynn Franks voters are more likely to vote for Cliff Groh second. But even then, Nelson's at 44%. So if there's, again, a huge drop-off here, if there's a lot of the Lynn Franks people bullet vote, and we're talking about 425 people. If they bullet voted, I don't know. This could be interesting how this race turns out as well. I think Cliff Groh's in better shape than Tom McKay and Julie Colomb just because of the dynamic of the race, and they were talking about ranking and they were communicating that. But a very small number of voters here in this district, so this is going to be one to watch as well for the ranked choice. Don't count David Nelson out, depending on what these Lynn Franks voters do. We've never seen this before. Only example we have is the August, a special election with Sarah Palin, Nick Begich, and Mary Peltola, and that was a statewide race with a lot of exposure and a lot of money. These are much smaller down ballot races, so we're going to have to see how these play out. Genevieve Mina, she's up here with Vladimir Putin numbers. This is the Garen Tarr seat. Tarr ran for the Senate against Dunbar and got smoked. And then Andrew Gray, look at him. He's 4 people. He's 54%. That's really impressive. He's a lot of these races with 4 people, it's hard to get over that threshold. And in this case, these guys weren't really campaigning much, not a lot of competition, but he's over there, over half the vote. This is the open Ivy Svanholt seat. And then this was a close one before. Mears had pulled ahead of Forrest Wolf, so that's going to be a Democrat seat there. Really close there, but Mears, over 100 votes ahead. Stanley, this race tightened up as well, but Stanley Wright's still ahead a little bit. So he looks like he's in good shape. There's maybe some more ballots left, but I mean, we're talking about, 70 some, what are we, 1906? We're talking about, what is that? Hard to do math on the fly. 1906 minus 1839, 67 votes. So yeah, that's going to be really hard to overcome for a Scheid. So it looks like Stanley Wright's going to win. That's an open seat. And then Jamie Allard, she was never in any danger. Dan Sadler, this is a former rep coming back. He's over half. He's going to be returning to Juneau. Helena Johnson, up here with those dictator-level numbers. No change. Kathy, 80%. Whoo, look at that. Bam. Putin. It's Putin level. Eastman, he's going to win outright. Now, Eastman and Armstrong, the judge just dismissed the Armstrong case, Jenny Armstrong residency case, but they're going to refile it after the election as an election contest. So the David Eastman race and the Jenny Armstrong race are going to be kind of up in the, be a looming question of litigation that are going to be decided probably sometime in December, maybe even January. Here's another ranked choice situation. This is going to go to 2 rounds of ranked choice voting. Jesse Sumner is in the lead here, about over 10 points ahead of Steve Menard, but we got to see where these Rachel Allen and Jessica Wright votes go first. This is Jessica Wright's the wife of Stephen Wright, who's running against David Wilson. So over there, it's a family affair. One's running for the House, one's running for the Senate. And then Rachel Allen, her votes are she's like a David Eastman person, so who knows where these votes are going to end up going. But based on the current numbers, Sumner's in good shape. And then Rauscher was always well ahead, no change. This one has stayed, very similar. Kevin McCabe, the incumbent. As a Republican incumbent, a third of the Republican voters here voted against McCabe. They voted for Doyle Holmes. Now the Democrat votes are going to, I doubt, all going to go to Doyle Holmes, so Kevin McCabe should be fine. But it's interesting that the incumbent here lost so many votes to Doyle Holmes. but I think McCabe should be fine to hold the seat. But he should reach out to those people, Kevin. 2,500 of them didn't vote for you, Republicans. This is another one. We called this last week for Maxine Diebert. She's really close to that threshold. She's at, let's see, 5,050, 1.8 times 0.5, 2509. Yeah, she's really close to just winning outright. But what's going to happen here is Kelly Nash. We've talked about this before. She was telling people don't vote for Bart LeBon. You know, she's way to the right. So with these numbers, Maxine Diebert's going to win this race, and that's going to be a pickup for the Democrats. And then this didn't change. Will Stapp. This is the open Steve Thompson seat. He's gonna win this race. Will Stapp outright. Mike Prox unopposed. Now Frank Chamacheski, he fell below the first round. He was above the 50% plus one threshold. This is Grier Hopkins, the incumbent. He fell below that. But these Nate DeMars, Republican here, he's already so close to that these Nate DeMars votes are going to kick him over. So Grier got put into a much more conservative district and ran a good campaign, but sometimes, I mean, you can only, in these campaigns, whether it's like statewide or in a certain district, more so in a certain district, you can only move the needle so much. I mean, you can move the needle 3 or 4 or 5 points, but that's it. I mean, sometimes it's just the way the districts are set up. A Republican or Democrat can't win the district, so he's a casualty of redistricting. And then we got Ashley Carrick. This is the Adam Wool seat. He didn't run, so she's his former staffer. She's going to win outright in that race. Mike Cronk. He actually, look at that, 40 precincts for a House seat. That's a lot. Now, a couple of those he got like 100% in. 2 precincts he got like 100%, which is either he's really liked or he's really vicious campaigner. Just kidding, but yeah, it's great for Mike Cronk there. He's going to win re-election. Bryce Edgman unopposed. C.J. McCormick, he had a write-in challenger. This guy, Myron Nanig, I think, but really hard to win a write-in. So this is the Tiffany Zolkowski seat that C.J. McCormick's just going to get into as officially unopposed. And then here we go. Here's the big one that we talked about before, the Neil Foster race. He's now over 100 votes ahead of Tyler Ivanoff with the absentees. But, this is this third time Ivanoff's run against him. He ran against him in 18, 20, and now 22. And he's always been pretty. In 2018, he was much closer. And then Neil got kind of religion on that PFD. And now here we are, and it looks like he's going to win re-election, but very close. We're talking about now before when they were still very, very close, they were still each below 50% because of these write-ins. But now with the new batch being counted, he's above that. So if it was the case where both of them were below 50%, there would have been they would have had to rank these write-ins, which would have been kind of weird. But now Neil Foster's above the 50%, well above the threshold. So, and Pacatak is unopposed. So that's kind of the breakdown. So again, there's been some changes, but not anything major other than the Neil Foster race. And now Kelly or Lisa Murkowski's ahead of Kelly Chewbacca. So that's kind of the update. There's going to be nothing. I don't believe they've said there's going to be no more updates between now and Wednesday when they're going to do the retabulation in the afternoon. I think at 4 p.m. So we're going to do a show. Sharice Millet's going to be in studio. I'm going to be in New Mexico visiting my parents for Thanksgiving, but I'm going to be on as well. We're going to talk about all the races that are going to go to ranked choice voting. It's going to be the Lee Murkowski race, the Peltola race, and then about 8 or 9 legislative races. And then we're going to go through it. We're going to have live the results going from the Division of Elections, and we're going to kind of see who won, and we'll be able to get a much better idea of after that how the House is going to look. The Senate is essentially organized itself. Now this could always fall apart, but it's essentially organized itself. There's 9 Democrats plus Bert Stedman, Click Bishop, and Gary Stevens is 12. 11's needed for a majority. They're going to have more come over. I think it's probably going to be 15 or 16 bipartisan coalition. But the House is still, because of all these races, outstanding, is still up in the air, and it's already so close, we're not going to really know. And even after these races get decided, the House could still be 2020 or very close as far as where it's going to end up. So the House could be, we could be waiting a while for the House to organize. But the Senate, look for a bipartisan coalition. So that's that. Again, tune in on Wednesday afternoon to the Landmine. We'll be on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter with our live coverage, and we're going to kind of have the results live and talk about all those races. And if you're watching this, folks, if you like what we do, please consider buying an ad if you have a business or organization, or if you want to donate to us, you can go to alaskalandmine.com/donate. This is, we don't have like big, huge donors or big budgets. We're trying to grow as much as we can here, but to go to Juneau, to do these shows, to have more people contributing, it takes money. So if you like what we do, please consider making a donation at alaskalandmine.com/donate. You can do a one-time, you can do a recurring monthly. It's really easy to get it set up. And if you have a business or organization or campaign or anything and you want to buy an ad, we sell ads on the website. So really appreciate that. And stay tuned for more updates. And we're coming into the weekend. We're at the weekend, and the next week's Thanksgiving. So everybody have a really good Thanksgiving. If you're traveling, be safe, and make sure to tune in Wednesday afternoon here to watch us break down the ranked choice voting results from the Division of Elections. We're going to start around 3:30, and then we'll go till probably after the results get finished. So probably look for an hour and a half show on Wednesday. So thanks again. Have a great weekend.